Alright, straight to the point, I think Iron Fist was dead ass. Like I was sleeping for most of it. They stretched out the business scenes and all this boardroom drama and everything for way too long. There were practically no fun character interactions at all. And the fight choreography was shit. And to top it all off, every 5 minutes, Danny would come and just say that he is the Iron Fist, like we forgot about it within 2 seconds of him saying it last. So while I realize this is fucking lame, here's some ways that they could have improved Iron Fist. Alright, number 1, fix the fight choreography. Now this, I don't have to explain this at all. The fight choreography was one of the main things throughout the show, and it was terrible. I was not invested in any fights at all. In fact, I was probably asleep by the time we got to the fight. The fight sequences were supposed to be action-packed, but more often than not, they were just slow-moving people throwing their fists around. That's what someone like Luke Cage does, because he's a gigantic tank, not Danny Rand, who was literally beaten with sticks until he learned martial arts correctly, as they showed in the show. And to top it all off, just a little nitpick, he was beaten by Daredevil and the Defenders. Now, while some people don't see this as a problem, probably because Daredevil has increased senses and everything such as that, which Danny does not, well, Danny was more intensively trained, and as I said before, he was hit with sticks until he learned martial arts. I'm not sure that Stick, ironically, hit Matt with any sticks, otherwise we wouldn't have had that scene in Daredevil where Matt kind of considered Stick his father figure and tried to give him a gift, but of course Stick was like, I'm out, you're weak. But enough of that tangent. My idea for the fight choreography in Iron Fist is that make it like a Hong Kong action movie. Now if you don't know what I mean by that, think of something like Into the Badlands and the action in that. Fast-paced and engaging, unlike the action in Iron Fist. Now, you may say that they use swords mainly, but that's not really what I'm focusing on here. If you want an example from Into the Badlands specifically, maybe that fight at the beginning of Season 2 where Sunny is in chains. Moreover, from a continuity standpoint, as I've stated with the Daredevil thingy, it doesn't make any sense why Danny is showcased to get beaten so easily throughout the scene. Sometimes he will come out of fights, but he'll be beaten as hell. In Kunlun, I would assume that they gave him some physical training against other people, not like Daredevil, where he has an actual reason for being beaten up throughout the series, which is that, as we saw in his training with Stick, he mainly just trained with Stick. He didn't have any actual fighters or any stakes to go up against. With Danny, he was trained for not only a much longer amount of time, but I hate to keep going back to this, but the beat him with sticks thing, and he probably went up against some really fucking good fighters in Kunlun. After all, that's their whole thing. But no, some drunk guard can beat him. I mean, yeah, he was a hand soldier and everything, but still. Come on. He literally fought with a bottle in his hand, not even trying to crack it on Danny's head. Number 2, and this is the most important thing, character development. Danny did not develop as a character throughout the entire series. He was the same from beginning to end, and that was a guy who could swing his arms around in a sort of form and has a glowy fist. That's about it. Oh, and keeps saying that he's the Iron Fist. By the end of the series, Danny should have been where he was in that episode of Luke Cage Season 2. More relaxed, not bragging about how he's the Iron Fist every 5 minutes, and less whiny in general. 3. Another way they could have spiced up the fight scenes is by having some music playing in the background. Now, I wouldn't have it playing in one-on-one fights, which are meant to be impactful and everything. Like the fight with Davos, for example. This would spice up the fights even more so than what I said about the fight choreography, because music is integral to movies as a whole, and especially to fight sequences, to set the tone and keep people on the edge of their seat for the fight, or maybe just for the tone. In this regard, Iron Fist should take a page out of Luke Cage's book, have some stylized music for it. Luke Cage has a lot of old school hip-hop beats and tracks, So with Iron Fist, maybe something like they showed in the trailers or in that one scene where Danny and Colleen were doing that weird meditating. And now, for my final point, all I have to say is speed up some of the boardroom drama and everything, and make room for more fun character interactions throughout the season. Now, while there was character interaction outside of these boring boardroom meetings and all this business talk, it never really engaged me in any way, and it came off as boring. There was nothing to keep me engaged in the scene and anything the characters were saying. And then a lot of the characters talked so slow that it put me to sleep, as I keep saying about this show. And I think that that's the show's main problem. It's just boring. It has no distinct style or flair, nothing to set it apart from the other Netflix shows, and nothing to make us interested in it, besides the fact that the Hand is there, and they were the single most boring part about this season. Now, that is also true for the Defenders, which I may or may not talk about in another video. But to end this video on a high note, Iron Fist Season 2 comes out on September 7th as of this recording, and honestly, while we have seen very little, I do have to say the shots we've seen of Kunlun and Danny in some form of the comic book suit have me a bit more hyped than I was for this season initially. Also, with the announcement of a new showrunner, besides that of Scott Buck, I'm not sure if he was just the director or the showrunner, but that has me much more excited for this show and restores a bit of my faith, at least, in this entire show. And without the inclusion of the Hand, this may allow for a more interesting villain in the show. And honestly, besides the Hand, the secondary villain or main villain even, I'm not even sure which he was, Harold Meacham in the first season, was not interesting at all. At the beginning, it was kind of interesting, but he just became generic and so unforgettable by the end of the season. So yeah, I'm excited to see where that goes. And yeah, end of this video. See you guys if I make another one.